Hello again. My name is Lee Pierce. I go by Lee. Dr. Pierce is also fine. I use she, they pronouns. I love my job, and while most people wouldn't necessarily describe me as nice, I don't think they would describe me as not nice either. And the rest of the facts you can find out on Google or Instagram. For right now, what I really want to focus on is that my life's purpose is to weed out cliches. So whether I'm teaching about relationships and interpersonal communication or coaching novice public speakers, I'm all about replacing sort of these cliche, one size fits all ideas with an interesting, intentional approach. And that's going to mean two things essentially for you as students. One, your number one task this semester will sort of be to become aware where you're using cliche approaches and to do better. And second, that there's nothing that we do in this class, from how we communicate to the assignments that I've set up for you to the policies about late work, that I have not carefully and intentionally curated. You may not like everything. That's just life. But I really want to model for you what life looks like when you choose sort of the interesting over the obvious, even if sometimes that means that things are more complex. But complexity is the price of thinking outside the box. So with that idea in mind, I want to look at just like two of the unique learning strategies that we're going to use this semester. All a learning strategy is an approach or set of practices that help cultivate a new perspective. Not surprisingly, we use a lot of different learning strategies this semester, some of which will seem very familiar to you, and some are like a twist on things you've seen, like testing, using tests, and on others are completely original things that I've created over the last couple years. All of the learning strategies are laid out in the syllabus and module sections of Canvas. I just want to look at a few of them with you in this video. 1, separating grades from feedback. 2, incentive-based deadlines. And 3, electronic communication. So separating grades from feedback, or what I call feed forward. So for every major assignment, tests, essays, speeches, whatever, that gets a grade, you'll have sort of that one big due date when I need you to turn in the assignment for the final grade. But prior to that big due date will be at least one, sometimes 2 or 3 little mini due dates where you can submit drafts or rehearsals of your assignment. No grade. My system is technically a feed forward system because you submit drafts of work to receive feedback and make improvements prior to submitting the work for a final grade. You can identify these feedback only assignments in Canvas very easily because they usually contain the words draft or rehearsal, and they're worth 0 points. Do not skip them. So incentive-based deadlines. So the word deadline means technically that if you don't submit your work on time, right, then it's dead, meaning it gets no credit. And that's misleading because it's rarely true that people just miss a deadline and they're screwed. In most cases, we have some kind of, like in college especially, some sort of like partial credit. But everywhere else in the world, it's a karma system. So like people are as patient with you about your deadlines as you have paid into their trustworthiness. In college, it's sort of weird because we have this sense in the back of our mind that like, oh, if we just come up with a good enough excuse and if we just get sick enough, then we'll be able to get out of things. And that's just not a good system. First of all, because most of us really don't have that many emergencies. We're just bad at time management. And also because the reason that we make deadlines isn't to make other people happy. It's because we want to be the kind of people that do what we said we were going to do. And also, frankly, whether you're turning in an assignment late or I'm returning your grades late or whatever, most people don't care if we're like what our excuse is. Like if you're not on time with the stuff you said you do, you just are untrustworthy. And in most situations, it doesn't matter how good your excuse is, like you still get fired or you still like can't drive or whatever. So I don't want to be using this like, oh, we get so many points off per day system because it trains you to like just want better excuses. It doesn't make sense with how most other things work. And also, frankly, there are just like more creative solutions available. So in this class, we don't technically have deadlines. We have incentive-based due dates, and here's how they work. You have assignments with their due date and time laid out in the course schedule at the bottom of the syllabus section of Canvas. When I say due date, I don't mean deadline. I mean, you should submit the work by this due date because if you do, that's going to keep you on track with the course. And it'll also let me do what I've got to do to make sure that we're on time. You get an incentive for making the due dates for assignments during the semester. Like most people, honestly, professionals, college students, whatever, they're really bad with deadlines. So if you're meeting your due dates, then I think you deserve some kind of credit for being on top of your shit. Well, then what if you miss a due date? If you miss the original due date, then you have until I finish grading until the work becomes truly late. How long is that? I typically tell people it's between like 2 days to 5. and it's up to 2 weeks over the regular semester. Once I finish grading, I'll send an announcement. If you're still missing it, you get 24 hours to turn the assignment in for partial credit. So you missed the second due date, but now you've got like a third due date to turn the assignment in and at least get something. And after that, we're done. No excuses. If there is some kind of like pending crisis, then that becomes a whole other level of discussion, but I will not be making exceptions to this policy for pretty much any reason except some kind of catastrophic event. And I don't mean you went to the hospital and you got a note. There are 2 caveats to this due date policy. The first is for the ungraded drafts for feedback. They work pretty similarly in the sense that you can turn them in until I'm finished with giving you the feedback, but I don't give you the 24-hour notice. They're either in by the time I'm done with them or they're not. So once I close that opportunity, I'll let you know, and at that point, you can't turn them in for feedback. Frankly, I don't want you to turn something in just to turn it in. They're not graded. I want you to be working ahead, so I'm not going to extend that too long. 2 tests. Tests work differently because of the fact that you can circulate the answers and all that jazz. So tests have a very specific policy with an availability window and no availability for late work. Let's talk electronic communication. I want you to feel like you can reach out to me whenever you need something about anything. But I would also be a terrible teacher if I spent all my time just responding to your one-on-one emails. I need to do other things, and that is a bad use of my time, frankly. So I have a couple of ways that you can get what you need without me spending all my time answering every question that you have. First of all, use the class-wide email. So anytime you need to send a message about anything, send it to the class-wide email as opposed to my personal email. That way the teaching assistant can delegate to me only the items they cannot handle, and you will get a response much faster. The other option is simply just to use office hours. I have very generous office hours. They're online via Google Hangouts Meet, and during the regular semester, they're in person in my office. You can find the schedule of those in the syllabus, and also you can find the link to the Google and Hangouts Meet, which you can join by video or by phone. And you can drop in for a 2-minute question, a 30-minute question. So consider just doing that instead of having to take all the time to write an email. Just you can call by voice, you can stop in person during the regular semester, or you can come to the video link. So in addition to using the class-wide email and using the drop-in office hours either by voice or by video, sign up for the class Remind. Remind is basically a mass text message system. It allows me to send all of you a message right to your text message. And the reason I like this is because a lot of you avoid email. And you might be avoiding an email from another professor. There might just be so much shit in it that you don't even want to look at it. And I get it. I feel that way too. So while it's probably not a great system, I want to meet everyone where they're at, and you're more likely to check a text message from me than you are an email. So I hope you'll sign up for the Remind, and the other benefit of Remind is that it allows you to text me if there's some kind of crisis. So generally speaking, I don't really want you texting me 9 times out of 10. That's why we have the class-wide email. That's why we have office hours. But if something happens, like your whole life blows up and you just don't know what to do, and I want you to have the path of least resistance to get in touch with me about whatever you need. That's why I really, really encourage the Remind system. All right, so when should you email me specifically? You should email me specifically when, if it were the year 1820, you would also write me a letter. Meaning you're gonna spend some time crafting it, you're gonna do a spell check and a syntax check, and you need a lot of explanation, and I need time to read it and process it and respond. So for example, you might write a grade appeal. You might have a lengthy concern or complaint about the class that you want me to think through and needs my attention, that you're not comfortable discussing in person, which is fine. I don't have a preference for writing or in person. Or you're initiating some kind of longer exchange about a personal emergency that you would like my help getting under control, and you don't feel comfortable sending this to the class email because it might go through the TA. So I'm not saying never email me, it's just emailing me is the least efficient use of both of our time, so consider using other methods first.